communist myself, I was firmly committed to Donald Trump's peaceful dove attitudes, despite the obvious reality that his previous dealings with Israel unironically set the stage for October 7, as I repeated 1 million times throughout this entire process. How could that guy be?
For me, I didn't really saw that as like a super serious kind of a situation.
Great. The smartest guy is up to the task. The #1 advocate, this ogre.
And it's really just trying to shake things up and just announce, like, there is some truths about Gaza. How are somebody able to leave there right now when probably 85 to 90% or more of the buildings are destroyed or seriously damaged? So where are people going to live and how things are going to go? And how can you rebuild Gaza until Hamas is still allowed to endure? So there's a lot of questions, and where's the money going to come from? So this is about, I think for me, I didn't take it as like a serious situation, and it's just about shaking things up. But I'm not going to freak out on it.
It's a bold move, certainly, far bolder than what's been done before. But I think
it's bold. That's the way I would describe it. The final solution is bold.
To stand unequivocally in an unwavering manner, as the whip said, with Israel, our closest ally and friend in the Middle East. And I think if we could bring control of that situation and bring about a lasting peace there, it would do well for everybody, not just in the region, but around the world. It's a volatile place. And I think the strong and decisive move is an important step in that regard. As was noted earlier, Prime Minister Netanyahu being the first international leader to meet with the president in the White House is more than symbolism, but it is a symbol. And it shows the world that we're not going to equivocate. The previous administration did that. They tried to appease Iran and by extension its proxies, terrorists, and they frankly encumbered Israel in so many times. You're seeing a reversal of that now. That is very important development. I think our allies around the world appreciate that. I know because I talked to lots of leaders around the world, and they've been very nervous about the instability there. I think this could be a bold step in that regard. So let's withhold judgment on all of it.
This is an extraordinarily dangerous approach for the president to take and not consistent with American values. The president has simply been treating Gaza as if it were one more real estate development opportunity. It is the homeland of many people. The official policy of the United States continues to be 2 states where 2 peoples can live side by side with security, dignity, and in peace. I hope the President of the United States aligns himself with longstanding U.S. policy.
The president talked about an idea last night. I listened to it very carefully. He talked about an idea. He hasn't fleshed out that idea yet. I feel
the silly part about all of this is that, like, these policy decisions are being made by an abject ass who just says whatever comes to his mind in that immediate moment and is very malleable too. So every single person has to turn around and play catch up after Trump comes out, and we'll just be like, yeah, we're going to do the final solution on the Palestinians, like, and it's going to be beautiful. We're going to build a beautiful parking lot over the graves of hundreds of thousands that were slaughtered. And everyone's going to be like, no, he doesn't mean that actually. Here's what he actually means. That would be crazy, you know? That'd be crazy if he said that. I mean, come on, that's not what it is. I mean, it's a bold move. It's a bold agenda. He's right, but this is what he actually means. This is literally the redo of the first admin. Okay? That's it. They're all fascists.
Certain the White House is going to welcome input. I don't think anybody ought to start jumping to conclusions here.
I think what the president's trying to do is find a path forward. And I think what he wants to do is a peaceful approach. He doesn't like it when people are at war. He's made that very clear. And what he's offered is let's talk about the value of this land to begin with. And let's let everybody be reminded that this is a valuable piece of property, and the people that live there should recognize how valuable it could be if there was peace in the region.
I thought this was a guy that was going to end America's endless wars. I don't know if this was just off the cuff, but...
Yeah, I can't believe that the Republicans are hypocritical, guys. You heard that? I can't believe that the Republicans were lying when they said that they would be peaceful. I, for one, am shocked. As a MAGA communist myself, I was firmly committed to Donald Trump's peaceful dove attitudes, despite the obvious reality that his previous dealings with Israel unironically set the stage for October 7, as I repeated 1 million times throughout this entire process. How could that peaceful dove who was president for 4 years and was not peaceful at all be not peaceful again? Shocking. Color me surprised, ladies and gentlemen. I am genuinely shocked.
When you're president of the United States, your words matter.
Have you thanked Trump for his content farming, allowing you to shine? I hate this, okay? The idea that, oh man, Donald Trump is really great for content. This is not f***ing content. This is ethnic cleansing, dude. What are we talking about? The craziest part about this, once again, is that a lot of people in the Western world will look at this and go, well, I'm not f***ing Palestinian. It's just content, right? Oh, it's just content. Who cares? It's content from the way that we're viewing it because we're far removed from the danger. Except you're not far removed from the danger when it's Donald Trump, okay? It's not. It's not just content. And you yourself are not sheltered from the worst impact. I promise you. You're not sheltered at all from the impact of this. This is going to be consequential regardless. Maybe not the Palestine issue, even though the Palestine issue I can present to you as being consequential for your immediate experiences in the United States of America, because we're just gonna keep giving billions and billions of dollars in weapons to Israel rather than fixing some of these problems, right? But I don't know. That don't believe him. The Ezra Klein Show video. Would love to hear your opinion on this retrospect of the last 2 weeks in Trump's strategy of blasting media with unending noise and chaos. Yeah, this is truly making me reconsider literally flying back home. Even a Japanese flight had a collision at the Seattle airport. I really do hope it's just a matter of people hyper focusing. It was a ground collision. I know, like a fender bender. I really hope it's just the media hyper focusing on like plane collisions and things of that nature that are normally routine and not that consequential. Also, they're calling it DEI, which is so funny. Yeah. I've been flying my whole life since I was a baby. Okay. And this is one of the first instances in the past 33 years where I felt like just a tad bit uneasy.
And the notion that he's asking the American taxpayer to take on the whole role of funding this or deploying troops, I find it, I'm not sure whether this was off the cuff or a strategy, but in either case, I think it actually sets back the cause of peace in that region.
I believe that what the president's really trying to say is we've got to do things differently in Gaza. And one thing we can't have for a long-term safe Gaza is Hamas. So I think he's right in suggesting that we need to have a clean slate. The reason I said a kink in the slinky, it may not work out the way he envisioned it or the way he discussed it at a press conference, but I think directionally he's on the right track.
Well, there's taking over Gaza, there's helping rebuild Gaza. Probably need some clarification on what exactly that means. He's a developer of resorts. I think he sees a good opportunity. But we need to, obviously Gaza's not ours, it's sovereign, it's part of another country, right? And all that needs to be worked out, probably among them. Perhaps with a little bit of facilitation from the United States, but clearly Gaza doesn't belong to the United States.
Trump's position on Gaza is absolutely dumb, stupid, and illegal. And the United States will not be invading Gaza. We will not be occupying Gaza. And for the Republican Party and Trump to run as the anti-war candidates to suddenly ask for war, shows you the level of hypocrisy and/or lack of leadership that is occurring at the White House.
Host breakdown and laughed over media's reaction to Trump's Gaza plan. Oh my God. Dude, what is going on, dude? It's just the cruelty is the point, I guess, right? That's what's happening. Where people are just like receiving this as like a cruel situation, and it's indefensible on its own. It's indefensible on its own. So they're just like kind of talking about how the libtards are triggered or something, as though that is a substitute for serious commentary. But then again, it's Fox and Friends. When have they ever been serious?
So here we go. President Trump announcing a new plan, a plan for the U.S. to take over, at least temporarily, the Gaza Strip, saying we'll turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East.
Lucas Tomlinson has more on what we know so far. Good morning to you, Lucas.
Good morning, guys. Standing alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the first foreign leader to visit the White House in President Trump's second term, Trump says the United States, as you mentioned, is going to go into Gaza and did not rule out U.S. military involvement.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site.
Mr. President, given what you've said about Gaza, did the U.S. send troops to help secure the security vacuum?
As far as Gaza is concerned, we'll do what is necessary.
Now, Netanyahu appeared open to the idea. Saudi Arabia's foreign ministry says it rejects any attempts to displace Palestinians from their land. The French government also said it's strongly against any forced displacement of the Palestinians. Egypt, Jordan, and other American allies in the region have previously rejected the idea of relocating the more than 2 million Palestinians in Gaza. During the news conference, our own Peter Doocy asked Netanyahu the following question.
We have heard Joe Biden and Donald Trump take credit for the hostage and ceasefire deal. Who do you think deserves more credit?
I think President Trump added great force and powerful leadership to this effort. I appreciate it. He sent a very good emissary. He's helped it along.
So that was in the Oval Office before the news conference. Now, Trump says the U.S. will own Gaza and be responsible for dismantling all the unexploded ordnance. He said he wants to level Gaza and get rid of the destroyed buildings and rebuild it. Guys?
You know, Lucas, there's no doubt. I mean, they're in a situation where they have to make a decision because Netanyahu says there's no way Hamas will stay in charge. Michael Waltz says that the Trump administration position is there's no way Hamas stays in charge. But if you've seen the hostage takeover, they're still the #1 presence in the area. They're the ones still with the guns.
That's right. And we saw those Hamas soldiers fully kitted out with brand new uniforms, brandishing weapons. Hamas still a force there in Gaza. Also, let's just think of just a few days ago when Trump was talking about leveling tariffs on Mexico and Canada, you saw a big about face. Perhaps this announcement will get the attention of other allies in the Middle East, guys.
Indeed. All right, Lucas, thank you very much for the live report from D.C. So, it was a jaw dropper last night. The cover of the New York Post is, "We'll take over Gaza." And you got to wonder where this idea came from. I know Jared Kushner had told the president a year or two ago, he said Gaza's waterfront property could be very valuable and suggested the Israelis move the people out and then clean it up. Donald Trump is a developer. He sees the potential. But then again, we're talking about land that people have fought over for decades, and it would involve moving the Palestinians out. It looks like Trump and Netanyahu discussed it. But they didn't really talk to the other side because, as Lucas detailed, some of the other sides involved, like Hamas, has said no. The no's so far that I just was reading about in the Times of Israel, Egypt is a no, Hamas is a no, Saudi Arabia is a no, and China is a no. And there's an op-ed in the Times of Israel, right? Plan won't happen, but could shake up the region because new ideas are needed. This might spark more viable solutions. And that's what Donald Trump said yesterday. We need new ideas.
Well, I think it's going to force the Muslim world to find a solution as well. I think it's going to give the president a lot of leverage. Something has to give. And I don't know if this is the solution, but I tweeted out last night, let me just sleep on this. Let me just sleep on this. I think so often when the president puts a radical idea out there to change the conversation around the issue, people just freak out. And that's what the media did last night.
If America looked like Gaza, I would consider leaving if, if I had to live in those conditions.
Tear down.
Exactly. I mean, every time we show video of it, I'm like, I cannot believe people live like this because we're so blessed and fortunate here
It's like
in America.
California. It's like the wildfires, but eventually people want to go back, and that's the problem.
And that's a little different because it's so gorgeous in California. You do have to risk the wildfire, especially if you're not going to get insurance for it. But when you look at the video of Gaza, that is no place I would ever want to go or visit. And he says he's not specifying where this new land for Gazans might be. But he said, you know, why not? I mean, you don't have to leave, I guess, if you don't want to. But if you have the opportunity for economic development and supplied unlimited number of jobs and housing and a good, fresh, beautiful piece of land, like he calls
Israel is a natural disaster according to Fox. Israel is a natural disaster according to liberals too, and the way that they presented it for the longest time. But also on top of that, I mean, we're talking about mass ethnic displacement. Okay, it's ethnic cleansing. It's the final solution. They're going to take 1.8 million Palestinians, which, by the way, is also a really devastating number because, as far as I understand, pre-October 7, the number of Palestinians that resided in Gaza was 2.3 by conservative estimates, all the way up to 2.5 is what I've seen. Okay? So that would mean if there's 1.8 million Palestinians, that means the number of the dead and displaced is significantly higher than what we have seen thus far. Okay? What we've heard thus far. If it goes from 2.3 to 1.8, that's not 40,000, 50,000 people. Okay? That's number one. Number two, the further displacement of the remaining 1.8 million civilians is insane. I mean, it's just the final solution. This is stuff that you read in history books and looked at and went, wow, how cruel. How could people be on board with this? And here you are watching exactly how people can be on board with it. What? Wait a minute. You've been lying about the numbers? I don't believe it. What? I've been lying about the numbers? What? All right, let's just keep going.
Why wouldn't you consider it? Why wouldn't they say, thanks for doing this? Netanyahu said one thing that I thought was interesting. He said, you say things others refuse to say, talking about Donald Trump. And after the jaws drop, people scratch their heads and they say, you know, he's right.
Just knowing a little bit of the history, you had the Palestinians in Jordan. And they
that chatter added me, but he was, I think, talking about the mainstream narrative, like that they've been lying about it.
said they created havoc. They threw them out. They were in Lebanon. They were creating havoc. They tossed them out. They were in Egypt in the 1920s, and they basically gave birth to what we now know as Al-Qaeda. That's Hamas is a division of that. They got tossed out. So they became Israel's problem, and we know about the Balfour Agreement. So now they had in the Oslo situation, they said, what if we gave you Gaza and West Bank? And Clinton said, we build a bridge, both of them. That'll be your state. Yasser Arafat essentially said, yeah, if I do that, they'll kill me because we basically want all of Israel. So if you want all of Israel,
that's not
and you
how
said
that
there's going to be many more October 7th.
I didn't really think that there would be, I did not think that there would be an even more wrong approach to this. Okay. And here we are. I don't know what else to say, man. It's crazy. Why do you repeat the 40K so many times when it come out in last December and medical orgs estimated since then 200K? At this point, repeating that number is genocide denialism akin to doing so with the Holocaust? No. The 40,000 number, as I have stated time and time again, is and it's larger than that. I think it's like 50,000 now, is the number that the Palestinian Health Ministry has given, okay? And that number in and of itself is not even the total number of death. A lot of people, I think, it's 60,000. Okay. It's 61,000 from the health ministry now. Okay. Understand something. That number, that 61,000 number, is not the total number of the dead. That 61,000 number is the total number that was killed by direct Israeli gunfire or direct Israeli bombs. There are still thousands of people that are under the rubble and no one has been identified. There are still a 10x number most likely that will die as a direct consequence of and has died as a direct consequence of the medical infrastructure being destroyed, as a direct consequence of other issues such as famine, cholera, and the spread of diseases that happen because, one, there is no medical infrastructure because it's been deliberately destroyed by Israel, and two, because people have no access to medicine in general, okay, because their aid is being limited. So the Lancet study estimations that came out last year that said the number currently, the official number at the time was, I think, 40,000, but the number of dead by the end of this process will be far larger than that, was an estimation judging by previous instances of sieges, war, and ethnic cleansing campaigns. Okay? There are plenty of people who die not on a hospital bed by direct gunfire from Israeli soldiers that are not recovered by the Palestinian Health Ministry. So the number that they're offering is incredibly conservative and far from the actual number of the Palestinians that have been killed. Okay? They can only count the bodies that are brought to the hospitals, and those figures are simply the numbers of people that have died due to direct Israeli munitions, gunfires, or bombs.
And you rock into Israel every single day. Israel just had 1,100 innocent people, including babies, killed in the most horrific way imaginable. Why would you say, let's just call it a ceasefire, go back? Because we're going to be on this couch again 18 months later and talk about another devastating attack.
They promised they would do it again.
We have to revisit all of this, but we are so done. It is really two areas, Palestinians and Iran. Everybody else, and we're going to talk to Qatari foreign minister and special advisor shortly, everybody else is on the page. And you can't say it's anti-Muslim. President Trump says, listen, I love the Middle East. I'm going to be going to Saudi Arabia. I'm going to go visit all these countries. It's not anti-Palestinian. It's anti-terrorist. The rocketing every day has to stop. But the Democrats don't seem to understand that. Listen.
He's got his eye on some real estate deal because he thinks that the coastline of Gaza is going to be great for some new hotel.
It's preposterous, and it's illegal by any understanding of international law.
This is not anything of a plan. This is a complete American imperialism at its roots, at its core. Donald Trump suggesting that this land in the Middle East would be better occupied and overseen by America. I just don't think we can really begin to even comprehend what we're hearing 2 weeks in from this administration.
Clearly, America is now, expressing clearly that they want to occupy permanently, probably, Gaza. They want the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians.
So one of the big
That's
not what he said.
And of course, the Palestinians, if you interview them, which many of these left organizations have, they're going to say, we don't want to leave. But they have to say that. They don't have any other options. They're landlocked. No one wants to take them right now unless President Trump comes up with a deal. And they're scared of Hamas.
Well, and so far they say they're not going to leave. And that's the problem right there. My question is, how much is it going to cost? I mean, we've got Elon Musk going through the federal government right now.
The Arab world's going to pay for it, he said.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. The Arab world, Saudi Arabia said this morning, no ties with Israel without the creation of a Palestinian state. So they are a firm no on the idea.
Are tariffs in the future, then?
Right. Although there are people who are already talking about how it would be a great idea. A lot of people. David Friedman, the ambassador for Israel during the Trump years, he suggested, so will we call it Mara Gaza or Gaza Lago? And then Marco Rubio said of the United States.
They've been debating internally, according to my sources, recognizing as the United States of America, the renaming of the West Bank to Judea and Samaria. There's a bill about that.
Annexation.
That's what they're talking about. It's not exactly annexation.
You know what? Let me
just erasing the name of the West Bank.
Let me go ahead and play this, because this is the man that Trump has chosen as the ambassador to Israel. And everything that we're talking about here was telegraphed by him, this is in 2008 and in 2017. Listen to this.
Basically, I mean, there really is no such thing as, and I have to be careful in saying this because people will really get upset, there's really no such thing as a Palestinian. There's not.
My feelings personally, and I'm speaking only as a person, I think Israel would only be acting on the property it already owns. I think Israel has title deed to.
I blame Hasan. That is all. Nice. Yeah, that's Mike Fuckabee, by the way, a rabid sociopath. If you want to know the true insane people, if you want to know the real rabid pro-Israel crowd, more so than the like Zionist Jewish population in America, It's the ultra-Zionist, far-right evangelical Christians. Okay? They are completely and utterly psychotic. I have no idea what you're saying.
Judea and Samaria. There are certain words I refuse to use. There is no such thing as a West Bank. It's Judea and Samaria. There's no such thing as a settlement. They're communities, they're neighborhoods, they're cities.
By the way, Bill Clinton also repeated these takes in Dearborn leading up to the election, operating as a spokesperson for Kamala Harris. Incredible stuff.
There's no such thing as an occupation.
This is illegal.
I didn't mean
this
to
is
interrupt.
illegal. This is what he just said. That is a violation of every international law. It's a violation of every convention that the United States, by the way, was part of. It's a violation of every
Human decency.
but also every UN resolution. It's a violation of International Court of Justice and International Criminal Court resolutions. What they are saying tonight to the world and to the international community, international law is dead. It's
Scott,
dead.
is international law dead? Because I think Rula is right in suggesting that that's basically what Trump is suggesting. Forcibly removing Palestinians from their land is against international law.
I think we're being a little dramatic and we're on our jump to conclusions, Matt, here a little bit. He muses occasionally.
Taking him at his word.
He muses occasionally.
Look, Scott,
and
just to be clear,
it's
because
provocative.
you're suggesting that we are making this up or
I'm not suggesting
exaggerating
anything.
it.
No, you're putting words in my mouth.
Well, I'm
I'm
just
saying
saying
you and I both know he muses occasionally and he's aspirational and he says provocative things
Scott,
occasionally.
I really don't want to interrupt you, but I just
You
for
don't?
my own, I think I have to come to my own defense here in saying Donald Trump, with his own words, said this is what he wants to do. He wasn't musing. He was looking down at a piece of paper. I've been in a room with him, just like that, with foreign leaders, looking down at a piece of paper. He is reading a statement that was prepared for him. Those are not musings.
Well, also, Scott, what happened to America first?
So I
this
think-
is the guy who was supposed to take us out of the endless wars, said he's against nation building.
You're stealing my
He
talking
railed
points.
against I am.
I know. playing the role of Catherine tonight. Red.
But are you for the ethnic cleansing or against it?
Look, I don't
You're
know
not
that
for it?
I don't
You're
know
not
that I
against
agree
it?
with the terminology you're
Go
using.
ahead, Scott.
Here's what I think. It's provocative. It's an interesting conversation point. Donald Trump, he's the only person in the world speaking positively about this particular geography right now. And I will just say that
That's called
in the first term, he did something rather audacious with the Abraham Accords, highly successful. He's always thought positively and aspirationally about the Middle East. And I would just ask all of you all who are enraged about this, how's it going right now? How's the current management doing?
Not
really
all
that well.
to answer you, and thanks
Terrible.
that's because of Americans' weapons and American inability to enforce.
You're blaming us for the
Yes.
management
Well,
problems
Hamas
in
wasn't-
Gaza? Come on.
Wasn't doing a great job before.
Okay, let's be honest. We have a 58-year-old occupation that is illegal, that decimated people's hopes and lives, and I am the only Palestinian here. And I must say that it honestly, the fact that we are not able to put in perspective that's the history of that region. Before October 7th, hundreds of people were killed. After October 7th, still thousands and thousands of people are getting killed.
And what happened on
For
that day?
58 years.
What happened on that day?
You know what? What happened on that day, actually, Secret Service of Israel had been predicted what happened on that day. What happened on that day is we had basically, a border that was, breached because we have a government in Israel, and as I am an Israeli-Palestinian government, we had a government in Israel that favored annexation and pogroms in the West Bank.
I'm just asking
Not
you what
only
happened that day.
I want to tell you something. We had a government, we had the prime minister who said Hamas is an asset. We need to finance Hamas. He's the one that sent to Doha the head of the Secret Service 3 weeks before October 7th to ask the Qataris to finance Hamas.
But you don't want to
They
say what happened.
considered-
You don't want to say what happened that day.
It's an atrocity that happened that day.
Yeah,
But
and
that
where and from
atrocity
where did
is
it
a
emanate?
That atrocity is it doesn't justify the atrocities and the war crimes and the genocidal campaign that happened after
I
our
totally
start.
reject everything you just said about genocide, war
Of course,
crimes.
but the International
Israel has every
Criminal
right
Court
to defend
does
itself.
not.
I don't
not,
want us to get
not by
I don't
committing
wanna-
war crimes.
I don't want us to get off course because I think that it is easy to redirect this conversation about October 7th
Yeah.
when what we're talking about right now is what happens today and tomorrow and what comes next. And I want to ask you just a follow-up to what you said. Hold on. A follow-up to what you said. Trump is talking positively about the region, but in his view of Gaza, the Palestinians do not exist. How is that something that is positive for Palestinians, 2 million people that live there right now?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't give a lot of details about how he envisions the future for that population, and I certainly am not in a position to flesh it out either, because I don't know what he means by that. Here's what I do know. Current management failing, a president of the United States who's speaking positively about what could be happening in that region, and you all talk about the Middle East being on fire, and nobody seems to want to acknowledge on whose watch it was set ablaze. And so, look,
I just want to be clear
sometimes,
that
I
when
think
you say
sometimes
talking
he
positively,
tosses
you're
things
talking
out,
about
and it's to start a conversation and we'll see where it goes.
Displacing millions of people.
And it's sending U.S.
troops,
sending U.S. troops
I think it's also
to the Gaza
necessary,
Strip.
and I said this earlier, but the fact that we
Hold on,
the fact we still have hostages, the fact that we still have hostages that aren't brought back yet, the fact that that seems to be somewhat of an overlooked portion of this
we have
entire...
we have a deal, not a great
not only
but a
that,
deal in
not only
place.
that, I'm interested to see, and there are people smarter than me about this, but what effect does this have on any ceasefire deal? What effect
There's
does it...
no ceasefire.
And
he suggested that it might actually affect it, and he
so that's my
was hoping
point. I mean, if there are people who have, you know, the innocent men, women, and children of Palestinian babies and innocent women and children in their heart and minds at the forefront, then they want a ceasefire. We want a ceasefire. If there are individuals who want the hostages brought home, then they want a ceasefire so those hostages can be brought home. Today makes no sense in actually moving that ball down the field.
And what about the American families who don't want their loved ones who serve in our service to go fight another war overseas in the Middle East that he has no clear vision for? But he talked about U.S. boots on the ground. That's a slap in the face to MAGA voters who specifically rejected the old neoconservative ideology.
But not only that,
he sounds like Liz Cheney.
But not only that,
this is exactly what Russia and China have been saying. It's all about the land. And basically, nobody watched what the Chinese said tonight. They said, we know exactly what they want, the Americans. Gaza, outside the Gaza shores, they discovered oil and gas. So it's not only
this
that
isn't
it will be a real estate.
This isn't a new concept. I mean, in March.
One second. It's about colonial. Today, he proposed a new vision for America, and it's colonialism. And he's been proposing this for other areas, Panama and other places. But tonight, he went further. He said, Palestinians, we will send them, you know, left and right, whatever. And Palestinians, by the way, the millions of Palestinians, they have families in the West Bank. They have families in Jerusalem. I have families in Gaza, and my family lives both in Haifa, in Jaffa, and in the West Bank. We can move them there. Why not allow the women and children to move actually to where they have relatives? Why not allow the orphans? There's 38,000 orphans in Gaza. We have orphanages that are empty in Jerusalem, in the West Bank, in Ramallah, in Jenin, and elsewhere. But you see that the vision is actually bypassing the Palestinians and ethnically cleansing them.
I reject one portion of your statement, which is to say that there was a new vision of colonialism for the United States of America. I think that's as old as the United States of America. That's not necessarily...
Yeah, we would never do such a thing. That's crazy.
I think the point that she's making is right.
No,
Trump,
but I'm also
that Trump is doing right now that is about
It's a funny predicament for a lot of liberals who see their primary responsibility as defending Israel, while simultaneously Trump gives the game away. So it's a moment of divergence where, on the one hand, you want to aesthetically maintain this presence that you are a progressive person, that you care about like international rules and laws and whatnot. But on the other hand, Donald Trump is advocating for the cause overall, the cause that you have also been tasked with defending. He didn't deny it. He justified it by saying there's a precedent of colonialism. Oh, he said American colonialism is as old as America. Did I misunderstand it? Oh, my bad. My mistake, Bakari. I misunderstood. I thought he was saying it's not a new vision as in like it's not a thing that exists. I thought it was in defense. Libs didn't agree with international rules. They rejected the ICC warrants and even threatened the ICC. No, I know. I thought he said it in defense, like claiming that it's not a concept. Like it's not new because it's not a concept.
Land. There's no question about it.
No question. But I mean, this is...
You think someone can be a liberal and support Zionism? Yeah. Liberal Zionists exist. There are plenty liberal Zionists. Now, Zionism is, you know, a fascist ideology inherently because it's built around the continued domination of the out-group at the behest of the in-group that is considered, you know, an ethnic and religious superior group. So it's not really different than Nazi ideology in that same vein. And yes, there are certainly liberal Zionists who there are certainly liberal Zionists that refuse to recognize these contradictions and will say, no, you don't understand. We just want Israel to exist, 67 boundaries, while also simultaneously, sometimes argue against settlement expansion in the West Bank, and in other instances just kind of let it happen. That is the distinction. Ultra Zionists, rabid settlers, they are the pioneers. They are the first line of defense. They will enact the agenda through and through. Felix responded to my Supreme Court is going to legalize fighter jets for private citizens soon. Once I get my Su-30SM, I'm coming to pick you guys up. No one's going to crash into us as long as I have my R-27s and R-73s. Hell yeah. Felix is going to save me. When push comes to shove and contradictions reach a boiling point, okay, liberals that actually cave and capitulate and concede to fascists are still doing the bidding of fascists. Liberal Zionists in this stage in Israel are doing exactly that. It is no different than Nazi Germany in that regard, where you did have plenty of liberals who initially were against the Nazi party that inevitably made way for the Nazi party. They too were complicit in the actions of the Nazi party. There's also a similarity within liberals and members of the Democratic Party that are doing the very same thing for the Republicans. I sometimes like using examples, even if I'm talking about Palestine, I like using examples that are not about Palestine, because I think that there's always this underlying suspicion for people who are just coming in that my criticism almost entirely revolves around Gaza, specifically because of, my Muslim background, right? That I'm simply too biased to see a more moderate, more reasonable approach. But this principle is universal and exists for virtually every single issue that the Democrats cave and capitulate to the right on. This is precisely the reason why I regularly talked about immigration, undocumented immigration in this country, and the Democratic Party's apprehension towards presenting a counter message to the Republican reactionary framing on the matter that justifies a white nativist anti-immigrant agenda. Okay. Hasan, what do you expect from Israel to do when hundreds of innocent civilians get kidnapped and killed in their homes? Kilof, what do you expect Palestinians to do when hundreds of thousands, almost 1 million Palestinians were forcibly removed from their homes 76 years ago? And throughout that 76-year process, Palestinians have been consistently dominated and murdered and also kept as hostages in permanent detention after military tribunals and sham trials that are all against international rights. What are they supposed to do? Are you reading from a computer? No. What are the Palestinians supposed to do? Because if your answer is, well, the only solution after October 7 is like ethnic cleansing, then you're a freak. You're a monster. Okay? How is that Israel's fault? What is the nation state that settled on Palestinian land and did all of those things that I was mentioning? The name of that country is Israel. Israel still to this day maintains tens of thousands of Palestinians in permanent detention. That's it. The standard of violence is always set by the colonial entity, okay? Israel is a settlement. Israel is a settler colonial project that was designed around the forcible displacement of almost 1 million Palestinians from their indigenous homelands, forced into what is now known as the Gaza Strip. Anyway.
United for Israel are not keeping silent. My help comes from the...
Amongst Israel's most fervent allies, American evangelicals.
He who defends Israel neither slumbers...
Do you consider yourself a Christian Zionist?
Senator, I'm a Christian, and I robustly support the state of Israel.
Ultra-conservative Christians now serving in key roles under President...
What? How can you blame Jewish Israel when they are kidnapped by us? What are you saying? I feel like... yes, I have watched Israelism on stream. One of the comments on Fox News today was that For the people who had ever wondered what they would do during the Trail of Tears, the relocation of Asian population on the West Coast will have their chance now. I mean, yeah, we've been saying that. A lot of people learn about these atrocities in history books, and they fantasize about how they would be on the right side of history. And while that history is unfolding in front of their eyes, they are demonstrably on the wrong side of it. Okay? Not recognizing that the exact same history is playing itself out in nearly identical fashion right now. And what they do in this moment matters. What they do in this moment is exactly what they would do back then. That's that simple. It's that simple. It is inappropriate and also untrue if I were to sit around and tell you anything other than what I've told you thus far for the past 16 months of my ongoing genocide coverage. I will not lie to you no matter how much people oppose what I have to say. This guy is just going crazy mode in the chat, defending the integrity of the Democratic Party at a time when it is at its lowest point in popularity for understandable reasons. One of which is that the very same Democratic Party that he's vociferously defending does not give a single shit about him and has completely dropped the ball on fighting against the Trump administration anyway. I will never understand the passion that people demonstrate for things like this. If they were to demonstrate a fraction of this passion for issues that they care about and choose to, motivate the Democrats into doing the right things, perhaps Donald Trump would not have become president. Will you debate Asmongold on what? Sure. That Donald Trump is a fascist? People who defend the Democratic Party right now are like Dallas Maverick fans, even after this recent disastrous trade. And I don't even think there are any Dallas Maverick fans remaining that still defend this trade. You know what I mean? They're just hanging on to this thread that doesn't exist by an institution or an organization that does not care about them. Okay? It's that simple. If you're still looking at the Luka trade and thinking, no, there's reason here, you don't understand. It's actually, Miriam Adelson does not want to secretly tank the team and then move it to Vegas. She wants to stay in Texas. She actually likes the Mavericks. She actually made, she actually pushed for this correct trade to happen. Anthony Davis is going to be tremendously better, much better than a 25-year-old Luka, who, no matter how fat he gets, is still one of the best players in the NBA with a massive career ahead of him. You don't understand. Anthony Davis is never going to get injured ever again, whereas Luka will always be injured. I promise. That's what you sound like when you defend the Democratic Party in this situation. I know Anthony Davis is also injury prone. He's also older, and he's a great player himself. It's just, very different than Luka. Luka is a generational talent and in a higher, I would say, category, a higher class of player than Anthony Davis is. This whole thing has made AD sound like he's a horrible player. Exactly. He's not. It's just that in the NBA, you have like unimaginably talented players. Okay? Anthony Davis is one of them. And then you have legends. Luka is in the legendary status. You can say that he does not play defense, and that's fine. That's understandable. But he is a point savant. And I know this with my, limited knowledge of the NBA. I don't really keep up with it that much. And more importantly, he's also 25 years old. You will never catch me saying something about a schlubby white boy who dominates in the NBA, okay? In my heart, especially a Balkan man, okay? I feel a sense of closeness. It's like watching someone directly play out your dreams. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this is how it's one of those moments where, you know how like people used to talk about like Lizzo and representation? That's what Jokic and Luka are for me. Okay? Schlubby Balkan boys that are just dominating in the field of basketball. We got 3 championship players now. It was a great trade, tremendous trade no one's ever seen before. It's kind of funny because it's the most I've ever seen Jokic be interested in talking about the NBA and NBA related and basketball related issues in that fucking press conference when they asked him about the Luka trade, and he went on like a 2-minute rant. I've never heard him like when you ask him about how he feels immediately after, like, I don't know, being being considered for the All-Star game again, he's like, I do not care. I don't like. I wish I was in Serbia. I want to play with horse. I want to play with my horse. Ask him about the Luka trade. He's like, this is devastating for the entire situation in NBA. It seems like basketball is becoming very different than what I had understood. Seems like no player is safe. I will be really reconsidering the game in and of itself. I work. Yeah. The dude who was like championship parade means I can't go home. Oh no. Is literally was yapping about this particular issue. You going on a basketball tangent to cope with the depressing news? I feel you though. He's got, this is job. I like job. Job security is important. But having said that, nobody likes job. Nobody likes job. Who likes job? People lie, say they like job. I don't like job. Please no deport. First of all, are you kidding me? I feel like Jokic would love being deported. Welcome it with open arms. It's the dude who loves Serbia. I've never seen him smile ear to ear playing basketball unless he's playing basketball representing his country. He loves it. I'm confused. Is Luka Doncic or Nikola Jokic Russian? Why the Russian accent? They're Balkan. It kind of sounds like that. Anyway, we got the evangelical Christians. My time on today's stream is quickly coming to a close, by the way, because I still have to literally pack up so much shit before I fly out, unfortunately. That's probably part of the reason why. It's not the depressing news in and of itself, but another thing that is also depressing is my departure from Nihon Des.
Mr. President, history
fueling hopes amongst Israeli settlers.
The truth is that the Palestinians are not a nation.
Determined to finally kill off any possibility of a Palestinian state.
People who ask me what would it take for you to live in Japan? It would take for me to quit streaming, because it's impossible for me to stream out here consistently. It would genuinely kill me if I streamed out here consistently, because I have to wake up at 4 a.m. every morning.
We just want to drive people out. Annexation of the West Bank means we're done.
In a 12th century Jerusalem church, a group of American evangelical Christians are singing in praise of Christ. We joined them on a tour around the old city.
So, the most holy place for Christians who come to Jerusalem.
Leading us, pastor and biblical archaeologist John Delancey from Pennsylvania.
Initially, the entrance was from the east.
For these devout believers, modern Israel is where the land of the Bible comes to life. But it's not just about history.
What we see happening in Israel right now, I believe, is a sign that we are moving closer and closer and closer to the end times.
When will this happen chronologically? Here's the answer. Ready? I don't know. Okay.
For many evangelicals, the return of the Jews to Israel is a precursor to the rapture, when true believers will be lifted to heaven, ahead of Armageddon and the return of Christ.
The greatest miracle in the history of the world, second only to the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
These are not fringe beliefs. This group, Christians United for Israel, boasts 10 million followers.
This man literally said Adolf Hitler was Jewish, and also it was good that he did the Holocaust, because it created reasonable ground for Israel to be created, basically. He was invited to the pro-Israeli rally that was in Washington, and spoke before many talented American political figures like political commentator Van Jones, who, as you know, is a big opponent, of anti-Semitism, and even the likes of Chuck Schumer. Because, once again, you can be as anti-Semitic as you want as long as you are pro-Israel. If you are pro-Israel while also saying some of the most unhinged anti-Semitic nonsense anyone has ever heard, okay? As long as you maintain the position that you are pro-Israel vociferously, Gilad Erdan, the former UN envoy, will come visit your televangelist megachurch to deliver a speech about how wonderful your church attendees are in defense of the state of Israel. Hasan, has the FBI come knocking yet? Brother, I'm in Japan.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has addressed their annual conference. And for them, Palestinians are living on Jewish land.
Why do we stand with Israel? God's foreign policy is, was, and always will be. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you.
But just think that the temple that once stood there in the days of...
For John and the tour group, these apocalyptic part of the attraction behind visiting Israel.
And a lot of the evangelicals you interact with, for them, this isn't a myth or a metaphor. It's a literal sequence of events that they believe will unfold.
Absolutely, it is. Israel is growing in their population of Jews from the diaspora, as we say, now returning to the land. And that's a good thing, and most evangelicals will say that this is a big sign pointing to how imminent the return of Christ may be.
So the end of time is basically the apocalypse.
Absolutely.
To non-believers, evangelical views might seem outlandish, but they're a hugely powerful force in American politics, making up around 20% of all voters.
Well, I think, the coming to Israel is what really helps to bring what you read in the Bible come alive.
And like Rick, they're overwhelmingly staunch supporters of Donald Trump.
What are you hoping to see from him in terms of the Middle East?
Definitely strong support of Israel. I think that's, for me, that's something I want to see. I call myself an unapologetic Zionist. I believe it's important for Israel to exist.
Is that based on religion and the kind of role of Israel in biblical teachings? Is it based on politics?
Well, I think it's both. For me, certainly the Bible commands, the whole faith, our faith is based on Jewish people.
Now, Pete Hegseth returns to the Holy Land.
Former Fox News reporter Pete Hegseth is one of a number of prominent evangelicals now serving under President Trump, recently appointed the Secretary of Defense.
That Zionism and Americanism are the front lines of Western civilization and freedom in our world today.
And here's Trump's pick as ambassador to Israel, former pastor and state governor Mike Huckabee.
There is no such thing as a West Bank. It's Judea and Samaria.
Judea and Samaria is the biblical name for what even the US government has always called the West Bank, land intended to be at the heart of a Palestinian state. This was Huckabee in 2018, helping build a settlement there, even though they're deemed illegal internationally.
When the Bible says that God gave this land to the Jewish people, I accept that.
An opportunity to apply full Israeli sovereignty on all areas in Judea and Samaria.
It's a narrative also shared by Jewish settlers, like far-right Israeli politician Ohad Tal.
Mr. President,
here he is speaking at Trump's Florida home. He and other settler leaders want Trump to support resuming the war in Gaza and annexation of the occupied West Bank.
Oh my God, he does look like Tim Robinson. I was thinking, who does this dude look like?
Yeah, even the MAGA hat.
See, so you spend a lot of time out there.
I've been in the States, I think, in the past year around 15 times.
Evangelical Christians have been appointed to some high-profile positions within the Trump administration. How important do you think those figures and their views will be?
They believe that this is the biblical homeland of the Jewish people. So definitely I expect them to support these policies also.
With Trump in office, Israel's settler movement hoped to formally take over the occupied West Bank, destroying any remaining possibility of a separate Palestinian state. If you were to annex the entirety of the West Bank, including the Palestinian majority areas, and then did not give that population equal voting rights in the state that they were living in to the Israelis, that would be apartheid. What other word could there be for it?
The truth is that the Palestinians are not a nation. They are a tribal society. Let's allow them to have different autonomies, local governing themselves.
Yeah, he's describing Bantustans, which also was a permanent fixture in the apartheid structure in apartheid South Africa, where the term apartheid was first utilized as a legal terminology in the prosecution of it. That's what he's saying, while also simultaneously saying they're like tribal people. I don't know what that means.
They'll only have to accept one principle, that this area is a Jewish state.
It's hard to predict what President Trump's policies will be towards this contested land. He wants to broker a historic deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel, and that's likely to include some commitment to creating a Palestinian state. On the ground, Israeli settlers are already making that next to impossible. Governments have been expanding settlements here the way they've been expanding their overall control of the occupied West Bank. Many describe Israel as already de facto annexing the territory. We've come to the village of Turmuseya. Most of these plush homes have been built by Palestinian-American dual nationals. But with violence flaring, the area is now on the front.
Random question, but was the segregationist U.S. technically an apartheid structure? Yes. The Jim Crow initiatives were, yes, absolutely similar to an apartheid structure. The difference is, of course, it predates the actual legal designation of an apartheid. That's the only thing that, I guess, salvages the American reputation. Well, that and also whitewashing of American history.
A line of attacks by extremist Israeli settlers.
They just want to drive people out from this area. So they want to empty it completely from people so they can take it over.
Yasser moved back here from California after retiring as a lawyer and is now Turmuseya's spokesman. One of the things the Israeli right wing are lobbying for is...
It's not like Palestine? What do you mean? No, it's not like Palestine.
Is formally annexing at least part of the West Bank. Is that something you worry Trump could accept?
We worry that he might agree and he might do that step, which is a very, very dangerous step for us Palestinians. It takes away the hope that we have been living for, which is an independent Palestinian state. Annexation of the West Bank means we're done.
On the horizon, an ancient biblical site and ever-expanding Israeli settlements. Now a new chapter in this old conflict could be about to begin.
The latest on President